Welcome to Unlock the Healing Path with me, Natasha Hornedo. Sometimes emotional wounds manifest like the ground falling out from under you. Other times, it's a slow descent into a dull, stagnant place. Whatever your pain may look like, it's hard to think about healing when putting one foot in front of the other seems impossible. This show is about discovering the powerful healing tools you have right at your fingertips. This is a call to action. The world is demanding that we heal ourselves fully and truly learn to love and accept ourselves just as we are. Learn how to unlock your healing path and start moving forward through grief with grace. Watch yourself continue to grow, expand, and truly live the life you are meant to live. One that is filled with joy, radiance, and abundance. Unlock the Healing Path starts now. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Natasha Hornedo, and you are listening to Unlock the Healing Path, moving forward through grief with grace on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay tuned for the next hour as I talk with my very own Client Lyndsey about her personal story and struggles and how healing through embodiment is changing her life. Then every second and fourth Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Central, and 3 p.m. Eastern on Transformation Talk Radio, I'm going to have some of the most heart-centered and knowledgeable embodiment practitioners helping you to heal and transform your life through embodiment. You can find out more about me, what I do, and how you can work with me by visiting my website, natashahornedo.com. Hello, Lyndsey.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. Excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you here. And just thank you so much for being on the show with me today. It really has been such an honor and a privilege since I started working with you, and just that you've allowed me to guide you in this particular moment on your journey through healing and transformation. I feel like I've just seen you blossom and grow so much. So thank you so much for being willing to be seen and to share your story here with me. And my deepest hopes are that it's just going to help to encourage someone else out there that's kind of on that brink of really ready for the change, but also kind of scared, and helps them to just show that they can really make that choice for themselves.
I mean, I hope the same too. I feel like I was that person before I started with you, super hesitant and knew I needed to up level somewhere, but didn't know how. So it's been interesting for sure. And I mean, you're such a great guide that it's really been easier than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, I love to hear that, in the sense of that. I really truly feel like that's the gift that I want to give to people, is to realize it can feel easeful, and it's work, and it's work, and you still have to go into things, but the point is that the work should be able to feel like it's just this aligned, easeful way. And so I'm really glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's definitely hard. I don't want to make it seem like it's an easy thing, because we know that's not true. But
Yeah.
definitely seeing some of the shifts that I've been looking for a couple of years. So yeah.
Awesome. And so before we kind of dive into the magic of some of the shifts that you're seeing, I would love to just kind of give some context to our listeners today. And so I would just love for you to share a little bit about, your personal story, what you feel comfortable sharing, and when we first started, what you were coming in with, and some of the struggles that you were working with.
Sure. So I was born with cystic fibrosis. It's a genetic disease that causes the mucus in your body to be extra thick. Um, Long story short, about 10 years ago, I got a double lung transplant, a little over 10 years now. Um, and I mean, it's amazing. It saved my life, and I feel so grateful for it. And so obviously my life looks very different from growing up to now, and just I've gone through obviously a lot of different feelings throughout my whole life. And changed what my life looked like in like a working sense. I lived in New York. I worked for like a busy hedge fund, and that's what I did pre-transplant. And then post-transplant, I became a yoga teacher, and I now work for like Lululemon, and it's just a totally different lifestyle. And I've made a bunch of changes over those 10 years and done like the talk therapy and done all different like modes to try to get myself just like a little bit more fluid and just like happier in life. And when I came to you, it was at first just for like body work because I've always felt like there's something stuck in my body. And I never knew like how to put it into words. And kind of everywhere I've moved in the past 10 years, I've found like a great massage therapist, and you were recommended to me. So I came to you and we worked together for like a year, just like doing body work. And I mean, I tell everybody about you. I say, go see her for anything. Like, and then we started to step into more of like this container because I was really feeling stuck. I really felt like I had used all modalities that I could think of to like move the energy around in my body and move like this feeling of stuckness around. Like I said, I had done the talk therapy and I did yoga and everything like that, which like felt like the right path, but I still just felt like there was something I wasn't tapping into.
Yeah. And so I would love if like, is there anything specific that comes up or that feels comfortable to share in terms of what you were noticing in that?
Yeah, it felt like there was stuff that my body was holding on to that I couldn't like verbally talk about. Like my brain couldn't process it either. So I couldn't like verbally say what was going on, but it just felt stuck. Like things would feel comfortable that like didn't make sense in my brain, but my body was like craving it. And I just felt like I had done enough talking and just, around the rib cage, like where I'd been like have a big scar from my surgery or something like that, just felt like no amount of talking would move it. So that's what I kind of like was tapping into at the time.
Yeah. And so what were some of the shifts that you really started to realize that you wanted to make when we decided to work together?
I wanted to, like, I'd been talking a game about being like vulnerable, and I knew it was an important part of my life, but I was still having trouble like being 100% vulnerable. I mean, I still have trouble, like, let's be honest, but
But also, I want to note just on that, you're also agreed to be on here with me on this show. And this is right here. Like, could you have imagined yourself being here a few months ago? Kind of
no,
talking about this? Yeah.
I talk about my journey, I feel like a lot with people, but like the physical part of my journey more than the mental part of my journey. Like,
Yeah.
it's no problem for me to tell people like I have CF, I had a lung transplant, it's really cool, I have somebody else's lungs in me, and like I'm healthy. But to talk about like my mental health is a little bit different,
Yeah.
because people assume like I'm pretty happy on the outside, so people assume that like that's how I feel all the time. But I really wanted to like embody that and feel that in my body as well as like how I said it out loud.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's super important that you're now at this place. And like I feel like this moment too, like kind of just correlates so much and like stepping into that piece and that vulnerability. And as my dear teacher Bella that I had on last week, she loves to say intimacy, into me see. And I feel like that's just like the pinnacle of vulnerability, of like just allowing yourself to really truly be seen in that vulnerability. And I know there are some other shifts and transformations that you're working towards, and I'd love to hear if you're willing to share a little more on that.
Yeah. I'm working towards figuring out like what my purpose, I guess, is and where I want to keep going in life. Like I said, I shifted jobs a while ago, and just working to like deepen that connection with what I do on a daily basis to like really light me up and make that happiness like fully transparent and open myself up for whatever that is. Also in like the relationship of a one-on-one like partner, I'm really working to find that partner in my life and like be open to that kind of love. And yeah, I guess those are two. I mean, I could say I'm working on everything at this point. Like,
Yeah. And is it okay to share a little bit about like our session that we had earlier today? Does that feel okay?
yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like it's funny because we're almost coming to the end of this first container that we've started working through. And it also kind of feels like we've gone through this cycle where we've had like these big shifts and a lot of things have been opening up and allowing you to communicate with your body. And you're all kind of reaching this new place of like, oh, now we're going into like these deeper levels. And it's still a little uncomfortable and kind of some of those feelings that were coming up. And so I want to speak to you particularly like stuck came up for you today again.
Mhm.
And I saw you in this and I knew and I could see it and I could feel it. And I could also feel like, you know, kind of the frustration that was coming up because we've been on this trajectory where you've been like moving and things have been opening up so much. And so I could tell today it was like this place of like, but what's happening? It was feeling so good. And I just want to speak to that in honor because that's also part of the journey and how things just flow. And so, you know, today I think our session was really important because we actually just went in there and were able to allow the space of like, you have to feel that what's coming up around that. Like, it's okay to be feeling that way.
Right. And I mean, you've given me that space multiple times. It's something that I'm not good at. Like, I'm like, no, I don't have to feel this. It's fine. I don't have to feel it. And then like the next thing I know, I'm like bawling. And I'm like, oh, okay, yes, I did. And then it's like a weight off my shoulders. And like that's definitely a tool that's come up multiple times in like our sessions. And because I get very frustrated that things aren't moving the direction I want them to. It's not fast enough. It's not this, it's not that. So like definitely
Yeah.
stuck and frustration is something that like I deal with probably every session.
Yeah. And so, and I know we're about to come on to our first break. So I'm going to kind of pause here and then we're going to come back and pick it up. So I just want to let everyone know you're listening here to Unlock the Healing Path, moving forward through grief with grace with me, Natasha Hornedo. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to continue this candid conversation with Lyndsey. And we're going to begin to explore even deeper how some of these shifts are manifesting in her life and just how this piece of really like acceptance and allowance of feeling the feelings that are uncomfortable and knowing that this is key to the process in order to create the space to move forward. And you can find me at natashahodnedo.com and learn more how to work with me. So stay tuned and we'll be right back. And welcome. We're back on Unlock the Healing Path, moving forward through grief with grace with me, your host, Natasha Hornedo. So we're here talking today with my client, Lyndsey, about her personal journey of healing through embodiment. And now we're going to find out about how Lyndsey really started to step into the wisdom of her body and decide that I was the aligned fit for her. Because my main goal for this session and this podcast today for our listeners is to start to tune into how do you start to discover who is the right person or the right support that you need in order to take that next step in your life. And by having Lyndsey talk about that and us kind of dive into that, I'm just hoping that those light bulbs are going to go off. And maybe that space that might feel a little fearful might feel a little bit more easeful to start stepping into. But before we continue, I just want to make sure once again that everyone knows how to contact me. And you can schedule a free activation call with me as well if you would like to explore if we are aligned fit to work together, or even just what the right next step is for you. And you can find me at natashahodnedo.com. And now let's dive right back in. And so, Lyndsey, when we left off, we were talking a little bit and just kind of noticing that feeling of kind of stuckness, and that's initially too what brought you in. So I'm really curious, and I know way back when we had this, it was really like a discovery call because I was still kind of new in the process and just kind of also throwing out some ideas of some programs that I wanted to do, and so I'm curious, do you remember in that call, like what it was that kind of shifted and then you just kind of knew like, oh, I'm going to do this?
I mean, it's hard because it does feel like a lifetime ago. This year is like kind of crazy. So everything feels like yesterday, but also feels like years ago. So I don't really know. I remember that for me, it wasn't like a click of a light bulb. It was more of like, we had been kind of working together more in like a, not surface level, because it's never been surface level for me with you. But like, you had taken really good care of just like my body. And I think I started to more realize that you were like really holding space for me in that container also. Like, it took a while for that to sink in. And then when we did have that discovery call, like, it just felt like it was so easy to talk to you and so easy to like tell you what was going on in my life. And you held such a space that there was like no judgment, no, like, no, why would you do that? Just like, yeah, why don't we thank ourselves for that? And why don't we move on? And just like things that I needed to hear and I needed to tell myself, you like continuously said in that hour that we chatted. And I think it just was like a calming sort of presence that came over me that was like, yeah, you need to try this. Like, you need to give something different a chance. And I think you, to your credit, like, you followed your intuition too at the time and kept telling me things that like I was thinking. And when you would say that I was thinking them, like, I'd be like, oh shoot, like, this is what I need to do. Like, this is where I need to be. And yeah, I wish I could remember like the first true embodiment session when we went through and like what exactly happened in that session. But to be honest, like, they all kind of meshed together. But I know I'm like a totally different person, like energy wise in my body, than when we started like a couple months ago.
That's really beautiful. And so, like, as I hear you and I hear you reflect on that, what it really sounds like and what stood out to me was that first, it feels like trust. Trust was like a huge piece to that. And I feel like that's super important because I know for me also, with the population and the people that I tend to be drawn to work with, trust is huge. I think oftentimes we have a hard time trusting ourselves. And so I feel like that was kind of the key, is that you got to this place where you built this relationship of trust with me and you were able to really see continually like, oh, this person is showing up, and like, and there's these things that are happening. And then you were able then to tune in and like give that trust also to yourself when you kind of felt that feeling of like, oh, this feels like the right next step for me right now if I want to move forward. And it also sounds like taking that step of saying yes to that call was super key because it really helped you to gain that clarity.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think like we talked about, like the investment, the money part of it was like hard for me, but in the way that you put it, like, you want it to be hard for you. And like, it was hard in a sense that like, you think about this money you have to put down, but then I'm like, if it's going to make me feel better and I'm going to be a better person and the energy is going to be better for me, like, really, that's priceless. And that I really felt that in that, like, again, I wish I could remember exactly what happened in our first session, because after it, I feel like things just like fell right in line with each other. And I was like, oh yeah, we're doing this for a while longer. Like, this is not going to like stop after 2 sessions. Like, everything just felt like it like went into place. It might have been one of them that like I wasn't sleeping that well and we walked through something and then came up with a plan, and then I like hard slept that night. And like, that's not something that happens to me like very easily. So like, it feels like it was one of those sessions that I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I'm like supposed to be doing.
Beautiful. So I love that you spoke to that too. And so so the listeners know what Lyndsey is referring to is initially we stepped into, it was kind of like a mini program where it was a few sessions that we decided to come into together. I also love that you spoke about the money piece, because the initial investment was not as much as the one we went to for the bigger piece of working together. And for one thing, I feel like for a lot of us, especially women, it's really uncomfortable to talk about money stuff and all the fears that come up around it. And what I have noticed for myself and for others, and this is why where I do want it to feel slightly uncomfortable into like the investment you're stepping into. And this is to say, not to say to the point where like this is going to put a detriment onto like your basic financial needs. Like, those need to be met. And I'll also share for this reason, like my pricing structure, I have 3 different levels where I have one level that I put out there that if someone's like really rocking it and they can afford my rates and then they want to actually pay a little extra to support someone else in the journey, I have pricing that's there that I kind of name transformation pricing, and that, or alchemical rather, because that also helps someone else step into that process. And then I have like, you know, my regular rate of like what is covered really in my programs. And then this allows me my third rate, which is what you work with me, Lyndsey. And I really love to be able to put this out there, which is my sliding scale rate. And that is for someone that like, they're really ready. They want to invest, they want to make this change, but also realistically, it's like they have to look at where they are financially and what they can afford that's going to keep them in a place of feeling good. And so what feels good for me is being able to provide that space where we can tune in and see like what's going to feel like it stretches you out a little bit, because that's what we want to do. We want to stretch you out. We want to expand you. We want that growth. We want you to get to that next level, but also what is going to make it so that you could actually step into it. Because that's something that came up for me initially when I was on this journey, where I really wanted to ask for support, but a lot of places it was like, well, I can't afford that just yet. And I had the gift of, with my coach initially, she did the same for me and she offered me the sliding scale. So I'm really glad you spoke upon that, because I think it's really important to, you know, it's like the money is real. It's an issue, or not that it's an issue. It can be an issue, but also it's important to like, don't let that stop you, because at the same time, it's a portal and it's going to open up. And I'll speak to like, I know when you stepped in, you were actually kind of in this in between limbo phase at Lululemon, where like you were stepping out of a position, you weren't quite sure. And then the second you made the decision, it was like, oh, you got this position and like the money came in and it was just, and everything just kind of flowed.
Yeah. And that totally happened. And you had talked a lot about, again, it takes me a while to get into things, but you had talked about like allowing the space for things so that they do open up. And I mean, it still takes like, not convincing, because that's not what you're doing, but like me to talk through it and get that energy channel open to like really start to allow those things to come in too. But I understand so much more now than I did 3 months ago about what you mean of like attracting what you want, and the things will come your way that you want. And like, for me, it was easier to visualize with the money part, like you were saying, like, let this stretch you, and then you'll kind of, that money that you're asking for from the universe will like come in. And I'm like, yeah, okay, Natasha, whatever. But like, I see it now and I make it work. Like, I've shifted my budget because this is what's important to me and this is where I want to be. And I mean, you worked with me too as I got paid and what I could pay for, but like, you can work things out. And I feel like that's just like a microcosm of like everything else, like just an example of everything else too.
Yes, exactly. Because I feel like a lot of times, a lot of people, like it is this money piece that kind of comes up as like the big blocker challenge. But when we really look at it, it's not really about the money. It's always something underneath. It's the fear around like, can I actually do this? Do I have the resources within me to step up? Like, can I commit to myself and make this change?
Right.
And the answer is 100% yes. It's scary. And it's really beneficial to have support so someone can keep reminding you along the way, because it is really easy to forget. But
yeah,
like,
I think
yes,
it'd be impossible to do on your own. Like, at least for me, literally impossible. So
yeah. And so I just really appreciate, and I really appreciate you giving voice to that, because that's something that it's just uncomfortable. And I know even myself, I've only recently started to become more comfortable about speaking about the money piece and how that fits in. And it really is such a portal. And what I've learned too is it's really more about, it's the portal of giving and receiving, and like how much you allow yourself in that. And once again, and this is why I feel like I'm so drawn always to work with women, and not just necessarily biologically born women, but really anyone who identifies as a woman or non-binary, where I just find for a lot of those populations, there is like this desire of like, oh yeah, we can give, but it's really hard to allow ourselves to receive. And so we're going to step into a break. And I am Natasha Hornedo, and you are listening to Unlock the Healing Path, moving forward through grief with grace. When we come back, we're going to continue talking with Lyndsey, and then we're going to get into the fun stuff where we're actually going to go in and show what this process of embodiment looks like. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. So we're back on Unlock the Healing Path, moving forward through grief with grace with me, Natasha Hornedo. And I'm here today talking about my client, Lyndsey, about her personal journey of healing and transformation. And now for the fun stuff, we're going to show you a little taste of how this process starts to work and what this embodiment looks like. All right, Lyndsey. So let's have you just begin to close the eyes, and just allow yourself to really begin to come into the body. Just allow yourself to begin to notice the breath. Just to notice, not to control. And I invite the listeners out there to jump in and try this out and just to explore what might come up for them as well, what discoveries they might note. So here, just begin to see how you begin to receive in the inhales, how the breath just releases naturally on the exhales, how the body just knows exactly what it needs. And you can just be here, just be in the space of allowing, in the space of receiving. I feel like my intuition, as it often does, is asking for some nice cleansing breaths. And so for these cleansing breaths, the reason I love them is because we inhale in through the nose and then we exhale out through the mouth with kind of a vibrational sighing sound. And it's just really soothing on the vagus nerve. And so if you have a really overactive nervous system, this is just such a beautiful way to just bring that nervous system down and bring you into the body, and something I find hugely helpful. And I know a lot of my clients do. So we're going to enter into 3 cleansing breaths together. I also like to imagine here is on the exhale through my Taoist traditions that I work with, either a kind of cloud of black smoke or a dragon being exhaled out, just releasing out any stagnant chi or energy that is no longer needed. And so we'll take a nice big deep breath here and sigh it out. And 2 more of those. And then again, just allowing yourself to return to just the natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing where the sit bones meet with the chair or the ground beneath you. Seeing if you can even ask that chair or that ground, how can you be more comfortable for me in this moment? And just noticing what shifts. And now, Lyndsey, I want you to begin to just scan through the body with an openness, with an awareness, with an allowance, a curiosity, and just beginning to see what areas of the body might be communicating to you now. And as you begin to tune in, I just want you to describe out loud in detail the sensations that you're noticing in the body and where they are.
So when we started to breathe, like with the eyes closed, it felt like I was like straight breathing through like a hole right in the middle of my chest. And I just tried to sit with it and like not analyze it, but I'm not great at that. But now it feels like 2 holes, like a hole here and a hole here. And that's like what I'm breathing through. And then my body, as I think about that, wants to connect them, but I'm not seeing how they're connected quite yet.
Okay. And so beautiful. And so do those spaces, does that energy, do they have a color or a density?
Yeah, it's white.
They're white. Okay. And so for just a moment, we're just gonna give some acknowledgement. And so for this, I just want you to speak directly to those two spaces of energy that you're noticing in the chest and in the throat. And I just want you to say, I notice you. Energy in my chest and in my throat. White spaces where my breath seems to be coming from today. And then just notice if anything shifts in that awareness. And as you tune in, just allowing yourself to reveal out loud anything you may or may not notice, knowing it's perfect either way.
Yeah, it's almost like I see breath coming in from the two of them, like colliding with each other and then like going back out. Like I see this like, Yeah.
So it sounds like you are noticing now that there is kind of a tube that connects them, but then right before they meet each other, they kind of repel each other the other way.
Yeah.
Okay. And so just staying in tune with that energy and staying in connection, I want you to just ask that energy. Or if it feels like they're kind of separate but connected, you can kind of ask them individually of how would it feel if that breath could connect, if that tube or that tunnel that kind of opens up in that connection, how would it feel if they were allowed to kind of play and dance with each other?
They're not really like, neither it seems open to it at the moment. They're both like, it's like a very stubborn energy, which I feel like happens to me a lot.
Yeah, and that's okay. And so instead, for a moment, let's just allow. Let's just give space for these energies to be exactly as they are. And instead of trying to shift it or change it, let's just give it space. And then just notice what happens as you soften and just allow space for these energies to be. Maybe even asking, is there something that these energies would like to share with you in this moment? Is there a message that they have for you?
Feels like more shift, like this one's kind of like closing up and moving up, and now we're just like here. And when I take a breath, it fills the whole chest up here instead of like coming in from here. It's kind of like into down here and then like out.
Okay. So it sounds like they did shift and kind of expanded and opened up. They just kind of wanted to go in their own direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. And so how does that feel in the body now that you've kind of just allowed that space for that energy to kind of shift and move as it really felt called to? What are you noticing?
Just like a little bit lighter kind of everywhere, because it felt like not restrictive before, but like the energy couldn't, or the breath couldn't expand, and now it feels like it can expand more.
Beautiful. And so I want you to just really go back into that energy, and I want you to connect with a sense of love, a sense of gratitude. And I just want you to send that energy, that love and that gratitude to this energy that we're communicating with right now. And I just want you to thank it. And then I want you to just ask, is there anything else that you would like for me to know or feel or express today?
Just like an allow space for breath.
Beautiful. And so With that, I want to kind of throw out, and I want you to see how this feels in your body. It feels like a beautiful piece to step into as we come into our last segment, would be exploring a little bit with some of the breaths of the 6 healing sounds. For me, I'm thinking the sound for the lungs, just as we feel like breath is coming up here for us today. And how does that feel in your body to hear that, of starting to play around with some of that 6 healing sound breath for the lungs?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, beautiful. So again, I want you to just thank that energy that you've been communicating with. Just send it your love, your compassion, maybe even imagining yourself giving it a hug. And so you can come back into the space and open your eyes, Lyndsey. We're going to take one last break. And I just want you to remember, for those of you listening out there, guidance and support is out there for you as well if you're ready and willing to ask for it. And once again, my contact information is natashahornedo.com. And I would be so honored to support you in your own healing journey. And I really just invite you to like take that action, even if it feels scary. Set up the activation call with me, even if it's just to find out what the right next step is for you. We're going to go on a quick break. And when we return, we're going to play with some of this embodiment with some of the 6 healing sounds for the lungs. So stay tuned. You won't want to miss this. Welcome back. You're listening to Unlock the Healing Path, moving forward through grief with grace, with me, Natasha Hornedo. And so we're here today with my client, Lyndsey, and I'd really love to dive right into our embodiment practice for today, which is going to be one of the 6 healing sounds, which is just this extremely powerful practice I've found through the Taoist tradition. And what we are going to do is just share a little bit of this practice. And if you feel ready, Lyndsey, I'd love to just kind of dive right in there.
Ready.
All right. So we'll have you close the eyes just to start, just allowing yourself to come back into the body. And here, as you just connect with the breath, first, I'll just give a little background on the 6 healing sounds. And this is from traditional Chinese medicine. And the way the 6 healing sounds are set up is that they're through a creation cycle. And that is why there's 6 of them. They correlate with the internal organs. And today we're going to work with the sound associated with the lungs, which in the creation cycle is the first one. It's the first organ that we really start to grow as we're in the uterus and embryo. And the lungs are associated with the element of metal, the season of fall, and the color of white. And so some of the positive emotions that are associated with the lungs are healthy self-esteem and confidence, valor and courage. So as we come into this breath, on the inhale, we're going to imagine this like beautiful white light coming in. And as it comes in, it's going to be embodied with these virtues of healthy self-esteem, of confidence, of valor, of courage. And so for both you, Lyndsey, and anyone out there listening, I want you to really think about like, what do those emotions feel like? What does it feel like for you when you have that healthy self-esteem, when you have that feeling of confidence? And I even invite you to explore into your body where that feeling is already there. Because I know it is, and it might be tiny. It might be just like at the top of the ear and the tip of a pinky. But I just really invite you to connect with what those emotions feel like and begin to expand them as you begin to inhale this beautiful white light. And then on the opposite pole, some of the emotions that are also associated with the lungs are the emotions of sorrow, the emotions of grief, and the emotions of depression. And so what's beautiful is that as we start to go into the sound and breathe out with that sound, we're going to imagine that kind of like almost like a dirty off-white energy is going to be leaving from the body, and it's going to be coming out through the sound with that color. And so we're going to begin now. with the palms facing the chest, bringing the palms in line with the nipples, and just visualize the lungs radiating out this cool white light. This white light just filled with these emotions of healthy self-esteem, confidence, valor, courage. And then you're going to smile to the right lung. You're going to smile to the left lung. And I want you to feel and imagine the lungs inside of you also smiling. And I want you to begin to allow yourself to feel the attributes of courage and valor just permeating through the lungs, growing and expanding. And then on the exhale, we're going to press the hands up to the sky. You're going to turn the head up towards the sky, visualizing out this like gray or black leaving your mouth. And you're going to exhale with a sound. And on that exhale, just releasing any sorrow, any grief, any depression that might be stored in the lungs. Leaving space on the inhale for those emotions of self-esteem, confidence, valor, and courage. Beautiful. We're going to do this for 2 more rounds. And then as you're ready, just allowing yourself to come back into the space. I just want to see what you're noticing now. Keeping the eyes open or closed, is it whatever feels good.
So it felt like the releasing of it and the sound, I could definitely envision the dustiness that you were saying. I think it was harder for me. It wasn't until I was right here that I could start to see some white. That was that's a hard thing for me to bring, the confidence and all of that. That's a hard thing for me to bring into myself. But it was just really interesting to hear the color of the lungs, considering I said white for when we started, and then and then just a lot, we've never done that before. And that, I mean,
Yeah.
so many things come up with my lungs, talking about earlier. So yeah, just kind of crazy.
Yeah. And I feel like if I could just reflect what I'm noticing, I just feel like there's kind of more of just this openness and this kind of settledness that I'm seeing in you as we kind of speak and communicate now. And that's one of those reasons that I love these practices, because they're really simple. You don't need anything else but yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you're noticing this feeling of stuckness, if it's one of those days that you're just really having a hard time, it's just kind of tune in, see what the body is asking for. And you got that real clear answer today of work with the breath. And so what a beautiful way to just come in and be able to work with the breath in this way and just get a palatable change in just 6 rounds of a breath.
Totally.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much. And so as we come to our close for our time today, I would like to put out an extra action step out there for anyone listening here today. And I encourage you to kind of take this as a journal prompt and start to explore, like, what is the dream or vision that you hold for your life? And what is the support that makes it possible for you to get there? And then as you start to cue into this, like, what does that feel like in your body? And where does that already live inside of you? And then just begin to ask, what is that one action that you can take today to expand that energy and allow yourself to just magnetize that dream towards you? I'm going to end today with one of my favorite quotes by Maston Kipp, because it's a really important one on this journey. Unless you're in mortal danger, fear is the compass showing you where to go. Thank you once again for listening. If you would like to contact me, you can go to my website, natashahornedo.com. All of my information is there. You can also sign up for my newsletter to learn about upcoming events and any inspirational musings that I have that I would love to share. And just thank you all for tuning in today to unlock the healing path, moving forward through grief with grace. I had a wonderful time. Please join me every second and fourth Monday, 12 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. Next time on Unlock the Healing Path, moving forward with grief through grace, I'm going to have the phenomenally gifted and humble Joshua Berry, an embodiment master and teacher, a magical healer, and my life partner as well. And we're going to be exploring embodied ancestral healing. So have a fantastic week, and I'll see you back here next time.
Thank you for listening to Unlock the Healing Path. The time to heal your trauma is now. Don't wait. Do it for yourself. Do it for the people you love. The world needs your light right now. And it's my passion and purpose to support everyone I can in healing their pain and trauma, to support you in continuing to grow, expand, and truly live the life that you are meant to live. One that is filled with joy, radiance, and abundance. I would love to have that increase in every day of your life through activation calls, through one-on-one coaching, and by reaching as many people as I can to share what I have learned.